Hey everybody, so that live stream yesterday was really long and there was a lot of information that they went over. Too much information for me to do a video on every class at the same time, but I will start with Warrior and go over each trait line that they showed and discuss what the options look like for PvE. And after I go through all the trait lines, I will suggest what could be some of the builds that may or may not be the meta. Obviously, they are still tweaking numbers, and what we saw yesterday might not be the final product. So I don't want to come out and say 100% this is going to be what it's going to be. But it would be, it's probably close to the direction we're going, and won't be too far off either way. So without any further ado, let's get into it and look at the first trait line. Alright, so we have Strength. This is going to probably be a staple of Warrior in every game mode. The minor traits first. Reckless Dodge, still ridiculously OP, still exactly where we want to be with a Warrior. That's very good. Building Momentum is what it is. Kind of runs contrary to some of the later traits, where we don't necessarily want our Endurance to be full. As you can see by Stick and Move, we do not want our Endurance to be full. They buffed Stick and Move from 3% to 10%. This is a huge gain for the Warrior. And it means that Warriors are going to be very rewarded if of being conscious of not having full Adrenaline. For easy fights where you know you don't have to dodge, you want to start the fight off with a double dodge. Just to make sure that as far as the fight goes, you don't have any Endurance. Thankfully, with Reckless Dodge, dodging should be part of your rotation anyway. So Stick and Move, really big gain for us. Going through the Adept tier, at the Adept tier, none of these traits are attractive at all for the Warrior in PvE. I'm inclined to say if we have to take one of them, to just take Restorative Strength, because you never know when you might be on a trash run and get chilled and crippled for days, and activating your Healing Signet can save you. Pretty corner case scenario, but of these three traits, it's the only one that I would take. Master level, Forceful Greatsword, of course, Forceful Greatsword is amazing. They merged it with Slashing Power, so you get all the awesomeness of Forceful Greatsword, and you get 10% additional damage. That's pretty good. This trait was... Both of these traits were awesome separately, so putting them together is just a really good deal for us. And then moving on to Grandmaster, wow. Berserker's Power getting buffed and completely reworked, actually. So, gain a damage boost when you use a burst skill. It boosts the power increase based on how much Adrenaline you have built. So basically, if you have all your Adrenaline filled up, and then you use your Arcing Slice, you, for the next 10 seconds, are going to have a 20% damage boost. That's pretty huge. And with the build as it looks like it's going to be, it seems like we will be able to keep that up for a very large percentage of most fights. So I think Berserker's Power, the extra 5%, has turned this trait just insanely OP. This is actually the functionality I suggested they do. I wanted them to give us a reason to use our burst skills, because that's what the whole Warrior burst mechanic, is using your burst skills. So it should be gain damage when you use a burst skill, which is exactly what this is. So I'm really glad that they went with it. And so yeah, that's the strength line. Things look pretty good there for Warrior. A lot of, not necessarily a lot of great choices, but obvious choices, and the obvious choices are good. So we'll move on to Arms. Alright, so Arms, this was always a very popular trait line for PvE Warriors, and I think it will continue to be. Minor traits, the first one we get is Precise Strikes, Bleeding on Crit. Obviously that's going to help us out a lot. Unsuspecting Foe, critical hit chance against stun foes, not really going to be too useful for PvE. Attack of Opportunity, increased damage to bleeding foes, and bleeds you apply last 50% longer. That's really, really good. Both of those traits were good in separate situations. You wanted the bleed duration for some kind of Condi build. and the attack of opportunity was good in a direct damage build. This will just allow, for PvE direct damage builds, allow precise strikes to give you a higher attack of opportunity uptime if you're the only source of bleeds in your party. So overall, it's a useful buff. At the Adept level, lots of good choices. We have Berserker's Fury, Signet Mastery, and Deep Strike. Starting with Deep Strike, Fury also grants you condition damage. This is going to be really good for Condi builds, so look out for that. But focusing on PvE, Signet Mastery, Signet 20% cooldown, very good, as we all know. That's a very useful trait. And when the when you hit a foe who's below 50% health, your attacks become unblockable for 6 seconds. Not really that great in PvE, but the 20% Signet cooldown trait, that's a trait everyone used for a while in Discipline, so it needs no real explanation of how useful it can be. Berserker's Fury is brand new. Gain Adrenaline while in combat, gain Fury when you strike a foe below 25% health. We can ignore the Fury for the most part, although it is nice. The Adrenaline in combat is super helpful. With Berserker's power being gain this buff when you use your burst skill, we need to build up our Adrenaline very fast in combat. So Berserker's Fury will help us do that. It gives us 2 strikes, or 2 Adrenaline pips every 3 seconds. It takes 30 Adrenaline to fill up, so it's not going to be a game changer in terms of how much Adrenaline it gives you, but it is very helpful. So Berserker's Fury, very useful, probably will be used a lot. At the Master level, we have Rending Strikes, Opportunist, and Blade Master. For PvE, Rending Strikes, obviously amazing. Vuln on crit was already a trait that everyone wanted, and now it gives you Swiftness on crit, meaning that in combat you'll always have that extra Swiftness boon no matter what. A big boost there for Rending Strikes. Opportunist, that's mostly a Condi PvP thing, and Blade Master also, that's a Condi PvE thing, so for the Condi PvE build, Blade Master is going to be really strong. And it'll allow you to final thrust a lot more, which is pretty cool. At the Grandmaster level, we have Burst Precision, Furious, and Dual Wielding. Dual Wielding is going to be sort of like the PvE Condi thing. And if you wanted to run an axe build for some reason, Burst Precision going to be sort of like a Cavaliers type PvP build where you don't put any points into getting precision, but you still will hit 100% with your Eviscerate. And Furious, which I think is going to be very useful in PvE, will give you bonus Adrenaline when you critically hit. That's super good. As I said, we're going to really almost be limited by what we can do with our burst skills. We're going to need to fill up our Adrenaline very fast. Furious doubles the Adrenaline gain that we're going to get for every hit. So ideally, we won't be limited by our Adrenaline, and what we'll actually be limited by is how fast the cooldown on our burst skills is. So I see Furious as having a huge place in the PvE meta coming up. So with that said, we'll move on to defense, which you might be able to predict how that's going to go. Alright, so we got defense. The minor skills, or the minor traits: Thick Skin, Adrenal Health, and Spiked Armor. Not really that great for PvE, so those are all pretty negligible. At the Adept level, we have Shield Master, Dogged March, and Armor Attack. Armored Attack is not terrible. Not going to be great in PvE by any stretch of the imagination, but it is 90 power, or thereabouts, so it's something. If for some reason we had to go into defense. The Master level, we have Last Stand, Coal the Weak, and Cleansing Ire. Coal the Weak, actually decent. It's a 5% damage modifier. It against weakened foes. There's a lot of times, especially in with some of the changes to other classes, where you're going to have high weakness uptime on what you're fighting. So this isn't terrible. Grandmaster level, Sundering Mace, Endure Pain, and Rousing Resilience. The only thing that's possible for PvE is Sundering Mace. Mace skills inflicting a 10% damage boost to Mace and Vuln on Mace attacks. That's pretty good. So, I mean, we're looking at 10% from Mace there, and 5% from Cull the Weak, and the 90 power from Armored Attack. This isn't as bad for PvE as you might expect. Obviously, this is... I think we all know that Mace is not going to be the meta weapon for Warrior. But nonetheless, there's attractive options for a Mace build if you were just playing for fun and you really love Mace and you have a Moot and you want to use Moot, use a Moot build, double Mace. The traits now exist to enable that to happen. But I don't think it's going to be a huge part of the meta. So that's it for defense. We will move on to tactics, which the pastures look a lot greener there. Tactics. Interestingly enough, of these minor traits, one of them is actually useful. Inspiring Presence. Boon duration and outgoing healing increased. Alright, 10% boon duration, nothing to write home about. But since you're not getting boon duration of 30% anymore just from picking tactics, that boon duration is going to be really useful with Phalanx Strength. So, spoiler alert, Phalanx Strength is still really good. And Inspiring Presence is going to make Phalanx Strength better. So, guess what? Inspiring Presence is actually good. At the Adept level, Leg Specialist, Quick Breathing, and Empowered. Empowered is going to be the PvE choice. Clearly, 1% damage for every boon. Typically, in normal groups, in a fight, you're going to have anywhere from 3 to 5 boons on you, sometimes even more, but rarely less than 3. So Empowered, just a 3% DPS boost. We'll take it. 3% is 3%, and it has higher upside when you have even more boons. We like Empowered. That's good. Master level, Shrug It Off, Burning Arrows, and Empowered Allies. I think we are all aware of how powerful Empowered Allies is. So we will be taking, most likely in PvE, Empowered Allies. That's a pretty good trait. Don't need me to tell you how good 150 power times 5 players is. Grandmaster level, we have Powerful Synergy. That is one of the weakest things I could possibly imagine. Vigorous Shouts. That will be something that Shoutbow people in PvP have to deal with, but we don't in PvE, hopefully. And, of course, Phalanx Strength. Phalanx Strength is the bread and butter of Warrior. Spoiler alert, now Warrior can, with these changes, will be able to get Phalanx Strength in a DPS build. This makes Phalanx Strength even better, because before your choice was either do good DPS yourself or bring Phalanx Strength. Guess what? Now you can have great DPS for yourself and have Phalanx Strength. Warrior gets the best of both worlds. Phalanx Strength is really, really good. In conjunction with everything else, Forceful Greatsword, Phalanx Strength is just OP. I have a pretty good guess that Phalanx Strength is going to continue to be part of the meta, and the tactics line is going to be really, really good for any time that you're playing Warrior in a group. Alright, Discipline. So here we have some interesting traits. Discipline changed a lot compared to what it was. So we'll spend a little bit of time going over what we have. The minor traits are all really, really good. Versatile Rage, gain adrenaline on a weapon swap. That's half a bar of adrenaline. We had this already. It's really powerful. It really, really is good, and will allow you to use your burst skills a lot faster. Fast Hands, weapon swapping recharges faster. I think we all know how good Fast Hands is. And Versatile Power got buffed to the moon. Versatile Power is really good. 2 might on weapon swap instead of just 1. That means in like a solo situation or in a Phalanx Strength situation, it's double as good. Additionally, they tacked on burst skills recharge 15% faster. That's really sick. It's not a game changer by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just a nice boost. Versatile Power was was already good when it was 1 might on weapon swap, but now that it's 2 might on a weapon swap, adding the 15% faster burst recharge just kind of puts it over the top in terms of being useful. At the adept level, we have Crack Shot, Warrior Sprint, Vengeful Return. The only one that's really applicable for PvE is Warrior Sprint. They merged Warrior Sprint with Mobile Strikes. That's fine. It'll be good in PvE for when you're doing a trash run on your warrior and you get snared with an immobilize or something by a mob and you can whirlwind attack and go. But yeah, mostly it's valuable due to the movement speed increase. So probably take Warrior Sprint there. Master level, we have Inspiring Battle Standard, Destruction of the Empowered, and Brawler's Recovery. Destruction of the Empowered seems like a pretty obvious choice, except for the fact that in PvE, besides Dredge in the Dredge Fractal, most of the and the Aether Blade Fractal, I should say, most of the mobs don't really have a lot of boons. Most of the bosses in the game do not have boon stacking situations, so Destruction of the Empowered isn't the greatest thing ever. I might even be tempted in PvE to take Inspiring Battle Standard over Destruction of the Empowered if I'm in an instance where I know I don't need the Destruction of the Empowered, because Inspiring Battle Standard, the regen, is going to basically help your party keep their Scholar bonuses intact and just overall do something. Whereas if you're in an instance where the enemies don't have boons, Destruction of the Empowered will do 0. Inspiring Battle Standard will do a little bit more than 0, so it seems like a reasonable choice. Grandmaster level. Hammer damage increased when a foe is disabled, reduces the recharge on hammer skills. Merciless Hammer is not something I believe you'll be seeing in PvE. Especially with the new Defiant Breakbar whatever system. It's not like you're going to be able to keep bosses locked down anymore. So, with as you used to be able to with Ice Bow, so it makes the Merciless Hammer damage boost a little bit less useful. Burst Mastery. Burst skills deal more damage and restore adrenaline on use. This might actually be good. With the change to Berserker's power, this trait is actually reasonable. It's going to allow you to burst more often. It'll allow you, with fast hands, to burst on both weapon sets. So that's good. Whereas, a pure greatsword build is only that isn't going to swap weapons, is only going to be able to burst on the one weapon set, greatsword. A fast hands build that is swapping is going to be able to arcing slice, swap, do the axe rotation, and then use eviscerate. So burst mastery actually might be pretty good, except for the fact that it has to compete with heightened focus, and this is absolutely ridiculous. Gain quickness when you strike a foe that is below the health threshold. 15-second internal cooldown for 4 seconds of quickness. Guess what? Quickness is a boon. If you have boon duration food on, golden fried dumplings that give 20% boon duration, that will help your quickness out. And on 15-second internal cooldown for 5 seconds of quickness, say, that's a pretty hefty DPS boost. You'll notice it, especially in long fights. You'll notice that once the boss hits 50%, that your DPS is just skyrocketing, and it'll be because of heightened focus. So heightened focus or burst mastery, hard to say which one's going to be more useful and applicable in PvE, but I'm excited to test and find out. Okay, so we have gone over all the trait lines. Now it is time for me to make some mock builds and see what options might be out there. Alright, so this is my first take on what a group build will look like. This is going to be a greatsword camping build because you don't have fast hands, so you're probably going to have your greatsword set, and then on swap you'll have sword warhorn for mobility, or axe mace in a fight to start the fight out with a burst of vuln. But this is what it's going to look like. You have the synergy between Berserker's Fury and Furious to keep your adrenaline full, to keep Berserker's power constantly on, and that's basically a huge synergy. Forceful Greatsword obviously has great synergy with Phalanx Strength. Rending Strikes is just great group DPS. And then Empowered Allies, obviously synergy with Rending Strikes, and it's a group DPS booster. And then Empowered, it's just a nice little DPS gain for yourself. I left out the minor traits because they're kind of a given, and I already discussed how good they are. But yeah, this is the core of what I think will be the main warrior build you see in PvE groups moving forward when this patch does go live. Obviously, again, with the caveat, numbers can change. Anet might come to their senses and realize that Berserker's power with this change is going to be really, really, really good, and that maybe Empowered Allies maybe needs to move or something. I don't know. But this build looks good to me. I wish I could play this build right now. I wish I could play this build tonight when I run dungeons. So yeah, this is what I think group builds are going to look like. The next build I'm going to talk about is what I think might be like a solo DPS build that you'd run if you wanted to solo a Ra. And then I'm going to have some closing words on overall the big picture for the warrior. Alright, so this is like a solo DPS build for like if you wanted to solo a Ra or a Fractal or any other dungeon or whatever, or just open world running around. This is very much the traditional greatsword plus axe mace fast hands build using strength, arms, and discipline. You can see there's a few changes. You're going to use Signet you're going to use Signet Mastery and dual wielding because you are getting you're getting adrenaline on weapon swap. You won't need the adrenaline building traits and arms so much, and you can focus on the Signet cooldown to help your Signet of Rage give you more uptime of everything. And dual wielding, since we don't need Furious to build adrenaline, dual wielding will set us up to have our axe autos a lot better, and our crushing blow a lot better, and all that. It'll just make the axe swap overall a much more appealing choice, and so that's pretty good. And then I kind of touched on the discipline traits that are pretty useful, but overall the reason we're going to discipline is for the minors. It's for the fast hands, the versatile rage, and the versatile power. This build will be a lot better at soloing a boss. It's going to stack a lot more might. It's going to have weapon swapping. It's going to allow you to play the more traditional greatsword plus axe mace rotation. Could you use this in a group? Sure. If you're the second warrior in the group and the other warrior already has phalanx strength covered, this would be great. This will be even more DPS because you'll have the empowered allies from him. And it'll boost the DPS of this bad boy even better. So overall, this build seems completely viable. If they don't move things around or don't change anything, I don't see a reason why this would change very much at all. I don't think any of these traits are that crazy except Berserker's power. So it would not surprise me at all to see this exact build make it into the final product. So that's basically it for the solo build. I will wrap up now. Alright guys, so that's it. That's sort of the overview on where I think the PvE Warrior is headed, and based on what they showed on the live stream. I'm sure you guys will have questions. Feel free to hit me up in the comments. One thing I wanted to say is that it does seem like I don't want to tell anyone to go out and buy gear now or different gear or anything, whatever, because this is way too early to speculate accurately, especially when it comes to big, expensive decisions like Ascended gear. But it does seem like, especially with the Phalanx Strength build, that Strength runes are going to be back in a big way. Just because in groups, you're going to want Phalanx Strength. And you're not going to get the built-in 30% boon duration anymore for tactics. So you're going to need Strength runes to give you the might duration you need to make Phalanx Strength good. So I see in groups Strength runes being good. Well, at the same time, solo Strength runes have always been good and will continue to be good in solo situations. So it does seem a bit like Strength runes might be the meta for warriors. It could also be a situation where, like, obviously if you're like the second or third warrior in your group, obviously you don't need Strength runes, especially if you're not the Phalanx warrior, and if you're running the solo DPS build, you can use Scholar, but that's kind of a corner case situation. I think overall it looks like both groups and solo you're going to kind of want Strength runes. But do not trash your scholar set yet. Do not run out and buy strength runes yet. Wait, and let's see what we can get 100% confirmed locked in stone before I advise you to make any buying decisions. But if you already have a strength set, I think you'll be in good shape. Don't sell it. Don't salvage it or any of that, because you're still going to want it. So again, that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful to any of you warriors out there. I may or may not go through other professions and do the same thing. I'm not sure. There's people that are a bit better experts than me at each individual profession who might do their own videos. But for now, this is good. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments and I will answer them. Thank you, and I will see ya.